Good afternoon. I'll call the River Trust meeting to order on October the 23rd. Welcome everybody here. I see that we have a quorum. I'm going to skip item 2A, B, activity report, because I know Paul has to leave, and I want to make sure that we get through all the items first, and then we'll come back to that report. We do have a report from the Riverfront Design Review Committee. So the next item is meeting minutes of September 25th. Entertain a motion.
I move.
Anybody have any corrections or additions to those minutes? If not, record your vote. It's approved unanimously. Thank you. Consent docket is sand mining, oil and gas revenue report, and the river corridor events update.
Move approval of both items.
Been moved, second. Please record your vote. It's approved unanimously. Primary agenda items is receive Oklahoma River Maintenance Project update. Is Paul here? Probably nothing, Dennis.
Yes, he is. Paul, you want to give a report?
Well, there you are, Paul.
Good afternoon. In your packet, you'll see a real brief report. Just to go over it real quickly, the two hydraulic cylinders off the eastern dam are at our hydraulic contractor's shop right now. We're anticipating having those rehabbed sometime late next month. We ran into a little issue with some of the parts. There's an extended lead time to get a couple parts in from the original manufacturer who built the dam about 12 years ago. So we're going to have to go back and get the original parts, actually refabricated to be able to totally reassemble the cylinders. So that's taken a little bit longer than expected. The second item there under the number one, we have a annual contract with a company out of California called Systems Integrated, and they're our SCADA system contractor. And one of their employees who comes out to Oklahoma City probably 3-4 times a year, sometimes more. He was out here for about 10 days a couple weeks ago, and he totally went through and rebuilt the 9 monitoring wells that monitor the water level in the eastern basin. Those have not been totally rebuilt since the dam was built about 12 years ago, so he totally pulled those out of the ground, put new up-to-date components. We've been having some issues with some of those wells not reporting correctly. So at least now on the eastern basin, those are totally back up to speed, and our plan is to hopefully do one more basin this fiscal year and then do the other basin the first part of next fiscal year. If funds do allow and they can schedule us in, it's our desire to get all the monitoring wells up to date, just as soon as possible. But it's kind of a combination of their availability and funding at this point. But we have scheduled the total upgrade on the other 2 basins over the next year or so. And number 2, our sedimentation basin work continues. With the rain we've had over the last couple of weeks, they haven't really been able to do a whole bunch of work, but we're hoping that work will keep progressing on schedule as much as possible. So with that, if anyone has any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Paul? No, thank you. Need a motion to receive the report.
Second.
Move second. Record your vote. It's approved unanimously. Thank you. Quarterly River Cruiser update. Jenny?
Good afternoon. It is the season, for us anyway. Anyone who's in the Christmas business is very excited this time of year. If you can see a report, I'll go ahead and start. Year-to-date ridership on scheduled service is down over last year, and it's not up. That's better. Year-to-date ridership on scheduled service is down over last year. Staff attributes this to the loss of availability of service hours due to the dam failures. Efficiency, however, is up. It's up 16% over last year and 33% over 2010. The target for the current fiscal year is 10 riders per service hour. Currently, we're logging at about 10.5 riders per service hour, or about 5% above target. Year-to-date charters are down 18% when compared to 2011. Part of this is due to the focus in marketing on public transportation, transit ridership. Sunset and specialty cruise ridership has declined over the prior 2 years. The loss of service during the busiest months of the season, last year it was the entire month of September, this year it was the latter half of July and most of August, has affected the service, charter service and specialty cruise service as much as it has ferry service. So hopefully with these new dam repairs we'll have a boom year next year.
Was that mainly caused, you think, because of the dams? Is that what it was?
Undoubtedly. I mean, once we're on the local news announcing that we're no longer running, it's very difficult then to attract riders. Even for specialty cruises, people just kind of write us off. So even though we make a bit of a marketing push to get people back on board, we are seeing a very, very strong reactions to our holiday charters. That's going to be a very strong season for us. But during the summer, it was very, very difficult to recover after having all that loss of water. Our adult ridership continues to grow. Now, these numbers are only ferry service numbers. This doesn't include charters and specialty cruises. And as you know, most of our specialty cruises are adult-oriented. So we're very excited to see that we are attracting more adults to the ferry service. This is good because they bring the children, they bring a more balanced level of ridership, and they bring more revenue because adults pay roughly twice as much as children and seniors. Facebook, we have grown 71 new followers since July. That gives us an increased reach of almost 35,000 people. Every time someone hits a like or posts a comment on our Facebook page of something that we've posted, it goes out to all of their friends. And so the reach, you can see with just 2,800 followers, when they hit a like or a comment, it goes out to their friends and can reach 1.2 million people. This is a very inexpensive way to market the service, and it's been very effective up to this point. October is Haunt the River month. Specialty cruises run every Friday and Saturday evening for adults. We have a costume contest, we have hors d'oeuvres, we have a cash bar, and we've been sold out the entire month. So we may extend, we should be able to extend this offering next year. This year we have a boat out of service with a generator failure. It will be out of service pretty much the month of October. But next year we will be able to expand that service. As we did last year, we'd run 2 boats on Haunt the River on a Friday night or 2 on a Saturday night. But we're very happy that this year that this attraction sells very well. Also on Saturdays, the boat that is decorated for Halloween, on Saturdays children can get on that boat, and we have costume contests for the kids, and we have candy for the kids, and we've even created a junior deckhand activity book, which we turned into a Halloween-themed activity book during the month of October for children. Staff continually looks for ways to increase revenue and ridership in order to capitalize on the popularity of sunset cruises, taking into account the earlier sunsets that we have now. We've developed a moonlight cruise, and we will be monitoring ridership on this activity to see if it is effective, evaluate its performance. Holiday charters continue to book. Staff has implemented a discount for returning charterers. We offer $100 off on your charter if you're a returning customer, and this has served to create quite a boost in charters for the holiday season as well. Our sales staff, Shay Loisberg, has been on vacation, and her receptionist says she's got pages and pages of bookings for her to follow up on when she gets back on Wednesday. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Anybody have any questions? Jeannie, any questions? Thank you. We need a motion to receive the report.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Record your vote. It's approved unanimously. Item C is to receive Oklahoma City Community Foundation Charitable Organization Endowment. That's our River Trust. The report is in your packet.
Move approval.
Been moved and seconded. Anybody have any comments, questions? Record your vote. It's approved unanimously. Thank you. Next item is approval of Oklahoma's Riverfront Redevelopment Authority regular meeting schedule for 2013. And it's on the back of the information items. Anybody have any questions on that? Concerns?
Approval.
Then moved and seconded. Record your vote. It's approved unanimously. Item E, adopt resolution amending investment policy of the City of Oklahoma City, authorizing city treasurer to provide investment services for the Redevelopment Authority. I think that's just some more cleanup in it than anything. Yeah. Have a motion and a second. Second. Record your vote. It's approved unanimously. Claims docket. Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Record your vote. It's approved unanimously. Additional items, comment by staff, or I guess it'd be Director Pat.
Briefly, Mr. Chairman, a couple of points of importance. One is that, to call your attention, the Compass Rose project, that building permit has been issued. Fabrication is underway in California, so very excited about that, working with the leadership group on a very nice dedication and unveiling ceremony coming up this spring. A very important meeting coming up on the Arrow Meridian Business Improvement District group discussion that's coming up in November the 13th. Have had substantial discussions with both OU and University of Central Oklahoma regarding their respective boathouse projects. See both of them accelerating pretty significantly here in the next few months. And then finally, would point out that we did make a presentation to the South Oklahoma City Chamber over this past weekend. Their board retreat, they had requested an update on the river projects, and their leadership, as well, their staff leadership, as well as their board leadership, indicated a very strong interest in being of additional assistance to this group and the furtherance of several developments along the river corridor. If there are any questions, be happy to address them. Otherwise, would request that the report be received as submitted.
Second.
Anybody got any questions, Pat? Would you vote? It's approved unanimously. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
Now we'll go back to 2A items from Chairman. Would like an update. I know there's been some meetings with the Riverfront Authority, the Design Review Committee. So I think Brian might have a comment. I know he's been an active member of that committee.
There have been a number of questions that have come up about where the Riverfront Design Committee is, where the trustees are on certain projects. And I think one coming to light that has been real frustrating, and I had gotten in touch with Chairman Norick on it, and then, there were some new developments as of yesterday. But I know a lot of you remember the promenade, the Meridian Promenade, 15th and Meridian, behind the 3 hotels or the 2 hotels. And it was originally brought to us in concept in June of 2009. And then in February in 2012, it was brought before the Design Review Committee. And, I had gone out there as well as several of the other people on the committee, and I just could not imagine the complexity of this and whether we were really prepared to take on this level of maintenance. I mean, it was extensive, way more extensive than what we had going on at Reno and Meridian and all that we were already struggling with, way more extensive than the Classen Boulevard. I mean, this was banks being totally changed, all this material coming out and then put back in. So I brought it back to the meeting and I asked, does anybody realize the extent of this, and have they talked to Parks? Is Parks in a position to take this on? And I was told nobody could even give me an answer as to whether Parks had even been brought in on the design part of it or anything. And I thought, if we're going to design this and then we're going to implement it and we're going to spend this level of money and then we just turn it over to somebody that doesn't know. So basically it was passed with the agreement that it would come back and that there would be consultation between Parks, Public Works, the consultants, and we'd get it down. It was dramatically reduced and brought much more into some, although it was still a huge, extensive project. It's still way, way bigger than typically what we would have. And my concern is not that you couldn't drop some of the plants in, it was how that was going to be maintained over the course of time. And so it was brought back. I was copied on many of the letters. I had called, or I had written Pat. He agreed with me. And we turned around. It had been brought down. It was brought back on October 4th to the committee again. And they said, well, we've made the modifications you've asked for, and that's basically it, but we're not going to do the extensive slopes. We're not going to do all that. One is, it kind of concerned me that it got to the point of design review, and then I'm the one that's saying, has anybody gone out there and looked at this and realized what we're getting ready to commit to? But I felt better that Parks had been involved, Terry Ash had been involved, and they had come back. Well, when it came back on October 4th, it was brought back and it said, we've just modified it and we've done everything and we haven't added anything. Well, I looked at the project and the parking lot right on down from it where the boats go has an incredibly extensive landscape that did not show up before. So it was like it had just crept down the river. And my thought is it's the capacity of the city being able to take care of it. Well, there was nobody here to make a presentation. So I asked again, is Parks aware of this? Do they know? Because it's one thing to do grass and some trees in the parking lot. There's only 4 trees that have lived in that parking lot. So the commitment to go over to something like this with Johnson grass fields all the way around it, I think is asking a whole lot in these extensive landscape planted bed. I was frustrated when I asked, what's driving this? And they said, well, they wanted to keep the contract at the same amount. Well, there's no excuse for that, in my opinion. You know, my opinion is we need to watch everything we do. And, you know, when I came on as a trustee, Ron had asked me to help oversee anything on the landscape, and I just know that that's one of the huge issues. So I, without being able to get any answer as to whether Parks had been made aware of it or anything, I made the motion to table it, and it passed unanimously. There's 3 trustees that sit on that board also. Yesterday afternoon, I was contacted by Scotty Montgomery, and she had said the project had been bid, which kind of surprised me, and that it had come in over, so they were going to make some modifications, but none of the modifications would be done on plant material for the parking lot, and that really it was going to be brought back exactly the way it was to the Riverfront Design Review Committee again this month with no changes. I was told that maintenance should not be a criteria in consideration for the committee. If there are problems, I could call Action Line, and they would forward it to code enforcement for the oversight.
Brian, who's telling you this? Who's telling you this?
It's Scotty Montgomery yesterday, who is the staff person on that. And I'm like, I just want to know that if we're taking on something like that, Wendell and Parks has been brought in. I mean, people ought to come forward and say, we know we're in a position to take over this, because these are huge leaps. These are not simple things. These are, extensive parking lot, landscape planting there. It's one thing if it was 20 trees in the parking lot and some turf. But when you commit to that, you commit to a huge amount, and they've already done irrigation in it once. They've already planted trees twice. It hasn't worked. I don't know why we are so sure it's going to work this time. So anyway, I just responded to her that I was going to get back with Chairman Norick and ask, and that's basically
I think what we're seeing, that's the trend. I know that's the reason that Mr. Stone resigned, is the frustration from that committee. I mean, if that's supposed to be our responsibility, I guess we need to ask city staff, is this our responsibility or not? And if not, why are we wasting our trustees' time? We've got an expert here that understands, and it's a maintenance issue. I mean, I doubt that Wendell has excess money to take care of this. He would probably rather use his parks money on parks and other things. But it sounds to me, when we're wanting to put flowers in the little medians in that parking lot and different types of plant material, if somebody is not there constantly, it's going to be weeds. I mean, it's just a waste, so that's the frustration.
My frustration was I consider it a waste of time and paper, because staff rarely ever listen to the trustees. And quite honestly, it's very redundant to the function of this committee. I really think that I don't understand the scope and the structure of these design committees underneath us and all that, but they literally touch everything we touch. And I quite honestly think it'd be more efficient. It's another 10 minutes. It'd be more efficient for us to all function as the design committee too. But I'm getting into governance now, and I don't want to do that. But I got kind of crosswise with them on a commercial project, and I kind of thought it was ridiculous. It was kind of an insight, it was in the overlay. There's a commercial project way down west. I can't remember which it was. Guy owns some tilt-up buildings. You can't even see them. And I kind of said, why don't we plant let's maybe put a tree row there or something like that. No, that won't work. We don't want him to put up anything else. He already had the structure. So I've got a kind of a developer's mentality. I said, if they do it tastefully, let's let them do it. But at the same time, I'm going to say this, that I think they're struggling with what their scope is. Staff is on what the scope of this design committee is. Don't you all sense that? And I think it's evolutionary, but I just consider it a waste of time to go to the meetings, because staff is going to do what they want to do, and we already touched it anyway.
Are we required to have a design? Are we required to have a design committee, or could we fold it into this meeting?
I don't know.
I believe that, isn't that a standalone committee? That's not a committee of the River Trust, is it?
Yes. It's a committee of this committee.
It's still a standalone committee.
No, I think it's like the Bricktown Design Review Committee. It's a standalone committee, not a subcommittee of the River Trust. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, I think you all are talking about two different things. The committee you're talking about is a standalone a committee that functions through the planning department. The committee that Brian sits on is a subcommittee of this board, correct?
No.
We're talking about the same one.
Put your mics on, please.
This is like the Downtown Review Committee or the River Trust Review Committee.
All right. Mr. Chairman, my suggestion is that you leave this issue with me and let me work out the details with Wendell and the Design Review Committee and the Planning Department and bring this back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody's setting a lot of policy that probably needs to be defined a little further.
Well, I'm hoping that nothing comes to council before we have a chance, and maybe between Larry, Meg, and Gary, they can at least get it tabled until after we have some sort of a discussion. Yeah, Larry?
For information, Chairman, are we supposed to vote on this project as a group up here, or does this...
That's the issue. We don't know.
I think the concept was voted on originally in the June 2009. I don't even know whether it was voted. It was presented when they did that. And then it goes to design review. See, that's part of the frustration, is not knowing whether it comes back here or wherever. I don't think it returns back here. It basically goes to the design review, and then we give it. But if we can't look at looking forward on the maintenance, if we can't look at whether it's architectural materials, and if one of the architects on the board knows that it's an inferior product, they need to be able to say it so we can do it. But we should not be driving the ship. I mean, it should be. So my concern is anybody can design it, anybody can install it. But the reality is whether it can be maintained.
I would request, Dennis, that for our next meeting of this committee that we have a report about exactly the lines of authority and who reports to who between this group, the River Design Committee, and the council. And if there's anybody else in the mix, does it have to go to planning? Does it have to go to anybody else on it? Let's at least get on paper what everybody understands is the way all of this is supposed to operate.
And just to clarify, is this the project that Tim Johnson submitted to us a while ago down at the hotel zone?
No, this is another engineering firm.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what?
Tim's project is a canal extension.
This was
this I-40 Meridian
This is
parking
I-40
lot.
in Meridian.
That's the right. back of the
Right.
hotels and then the parking lot.
And so originally, there was a very aggressive plan that was going to be partially funded with a bid, Larry, and then that didn't come together. And so we were presented a separate design that didn't have the outdoor sculpture and the lighting, and so...
It was my understanding when the whole thing was presented, if I recall correctly, that it was going to be a joint project between the hotels. We're going to do something behind their hotels, and the city would supplement it along the riverbank, and it would be a major design down along behind those hotels along the river. And then we were notified at some point in time the hotels had decided that they couldn't participate in this at all, any of their money at all. So we had to scale back the project to where it was only with city dollars along the river. And then I think that's, is that, am I going correct on that, Pat?
That's correct, Councilman. We started out working with the hoteliers behind whose property we were going to build these improvements. The hotelier declined to be a participant in the tax increment finance district as a guarantor, but it's still a tax increment finance funded project. So it's a TIF district project that's funded through the same TIF that funded our Dell improvements and others in that area of the river.
And so where are we in the stage of that project?
My understanding is that in addition to what Trustee Doherty said, I was just advised by somebody in the finance office that the project had come in overbid, that there were some discussions that were going to be held. I think later this afternoon I was invited to attend to determine where we are on the budget. I will take that opportunity, Brian, to find out a little more about where we are in the approval process, where we are certainly with review by the park staff to make sure that we've got this, and I agree, we've got to have it built in a way that we can afford to maintain properly, otherwise there's no sense building it.
Gary, I was, when the hotelers pulled out, that ticked me off because I didn't think they should arbitrarily be able to do that. And I asked for some investigation as saying, wait a minute, this was a condition of us doing some other things for you. That was, you were supposed to participate in this. They shouldn't just been able to say, well, we decided not to participate in that project.
But when they declined to sign the agreement for the guarantee, is really what they declined to do. That's when, and we ran this past this body and others, sought approval to redistribute those projects or the benefit of those projects so that it really was more beneficial to the city's property that we already have in that area in the River Trust and closer over to the parking lot for COTPA for the river cruisers than directly behind those hotels. And that was simply a function of the budgets. Basically, the generation of the money through the TIF is essentially the same. The fact that the hotelier refuses to guarantee doesn't change those calculations. Only if those calculations come in low, that's when the hotelier would then, the guarantee would come in, and they did decline to do that.
It sounds like then they know what the TIF's going to generate pretty well. I understand.
That's already been calculated.
It almost sounds like, well, we're going to have this TIF money, so let's make sure we spend it. You know, we can spend it other projects later on. And I think what Brian is saying, why are we spending it foolishly? I mean, we don't have to spend it all. You know, there's saving is okay. So I think we need to look at this, and I hope to imagine we can, whatever meetings you have this afternoon or next week, until we can get back a report, I hope you can stop it, put it on hold until we can understand what's going on, until everybody can understand. That would be very beneficial.
We will certainly do that.
Okay, thank you.
I just think that every single project we do needs to be aimed at the highest level of impact for the lowest amount of maintenance. And that's just, if you do that, you're going to be in pretty good shape. And always put safety first, function second, and aesthetics third, and we'll be able to. But we got to be driving it that way.
Yeah, call the hotline, tell them that. Yeah. Chairman, Ryan, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry, Larry.
If TIF money is involved, then this project has to come out of the TIF process, has to go to the Economic Development Trust, does it not, which votes on and recommends TIF projects to the council?
It does, and this project has been.
Has it already been to the Economic Development?
This
Hasn't been to-
particular TIF is the one that serves, it was established along the riverfront so that we could do the improvements at Dell, but the boundaries extend to
No, but the
Meridian.
TIF is in existence, but before monies can be spent by the TIF, it has to be recommended by the Economic Development Trust,
I believe that's correct, yes.
and then goes to the city council.
That is
So
correct.
I sit on the Economic Development Trust, so should this somehow come through, we'll stop it there.
Okay. Anything else? Brian, thank you very much for bringing this to my attention and then to the trustees' attention. I think it's something we need to be done, so thank you. Okay, anything else? Any other committee reports?
Tearing up money.
Thank you. Any more comments by trustees? Citizens? Any comments, citizens?
Yeah.
See none? We are adjourned. Thank you.